Well, the machinery says we're live. So Yvette and I would like to welcome you to this Saturday hangout, Break the Cage Now, which is, again, the second of our 5, or it may turn into a 6-part series of creatives getting paid. Yvette, welcome.
Hello, Kellan. How are you? Hi, everybody.
Say that again. I had you not.
Oh, okay. I was just saying hello. Hi, Kellan. How are you?
Hey, it's good. I'd heard you, but I didn't have it so that you could be shown on the video, and I wanted you to do that.
Oh, okay. All right. No worries. And hi, everybody else.
And I just realized that I sound awful because I'm using the wrong microphone. So sin and iniquity. Hold on, everybody.
There. How does that sound?
Oh, wow. You sound like the movie guy.
Yeah, there we go. All right. I got a little microphone here. It's a little cool doodad right there. Anyway, I can't hold it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a little good one. I just didn't have a plug in. All right, good. So we're going to talk today about creatives getting paid. And this is our second installment of this. And for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, creatives, everybody's a creative, and you create things in your life. What we were mostly talking about are artists, musicians, people that think that they have to sell out or that think that nobody's going to find their art and all of that sort of thing. Although what we're talking about really applies to any business. And so that's what we're going to talk about how not to create your art in a vacuum in a corner and how to get paid, how to find people, how to get paid to do this. So Yvette, have you had any thoughts that you'd like to share to start with before we jump into today's agenda?
Well, I did have some musician tell me that she felt that we were talking to her in that last broadcast. So I thought that was really awesome and cool. So I thought, okay, on the right track, then we're, connecting.
Did you tell her we were?
Yes, I did. I said, I was thinking of you and some of the conversations we had had. So I'm glad that it felt that way. So I was really pleased that it worked.
Of course it worked. So here's something. I want to use that because that plays perfectly. And I did see that comment, but that plays perfectly into what we're talking about. So you may have had her in mind. I may have had someone else in mind, but here is a key that goes to today's thing. Today's topic in episode 2 is finding your focus. Finding your focus. Now, when you and I prepared this, we talked about who we might talk to. And you and I have talked, I know you belong in my coaching program, or you're in my coaching program, and we've talked in there a lot about narrowing your focus until you're just talking to one person. And so when you do that, we narrowed it to creatives and musicians and artists and people that feel like they can't get found and get paid. And so that's what we were talking about. And this one person felt like we were talking to her. And I know others did also, because I've gotten similar feedback. And that came from us narrowing the focus and not worrying about who else we might, quote, miss, or even people we might alienate.
Right.
And that is going to be the focus of the message for the creatives that we talk to today.
Right. Well, I definitely think I got found on Twitter by more people because I think that, like you said, even though we were thinking of someone specific, it did relate to a lot of people, and a lot of people feel that way.
And let me give you one more example for you and for me and for everybody watching, and that is this. When you go to a movie, the people in the movie are looking and talking to each other. We're voyeurs in one-on-one conversations or scenes that are going on that are very specific to that scene and that event. And yet we get emotionally involved. We side with or identify with one or more of the characters, and we feel like they're part of our lives. And they don't even know that we exist. They're just doing their one-on-one thing, right?
Right.
And so that's exactly the point. When you do your one-on-one business, your individual personal focus and art creation, and do it just with that focus, everybody else that voyeurs that identifies it with themselves in their own way, and they feel free to do that because you're focused on this one-on-one. And so the metaphor, or the analogy, I guess, it's not a metaphor, but the analogy of a movie and how we voyeur a scene and yet get person involved is exactly the crux of today's episode. What do you think about that?
Totally agree. It reminded me of when I was doing the stage readings for Women Crossings, and that was some of the feedback I got back from about the dialogue. Was people in the audience and some of the actresses said that they felt like they knew these people, like almost like they thought that maybe I've heard this conversation or heard somebody say something like that. So I think that, right, definitely, even though I wasn't thinking so much about the audience when I wrote it, or as I rewrite what I'm working on it, I'm not really thinking about the audience. I'm really thinking about these women and their story and the conversations they need to have. So I think that speaks to the focus.
Totally. So good. Today is to find your focus. And point number one is I'm going to talk about artistic versus commercial success. Is it a trade? So when I ask that question, is it a trade? What's your first reaction to that, Yvette?
My first thought of that is I think of the core four. And when you gave us that, I felt like that was sort of like a template to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I sort of feel that when you say that, well, I don't have to worry about that because I know about core four. So that's not going to happen to me. But I can see how someone, again, who doesn't have, you wouldn't think of the core four, which isn't just a single thing, as being focused, but it really is focused because it focuses you in on those four core areas. So I think that with something like that, when you have that kind of focus, it's not an either or situation.
Beautifully explained. Now, people that are watching this that don't know what that is, core four is a piece of, an indispensable piece of coaching, one of all of my coaching programs, whether they're business or personal breakthrough work, that just is a tool to let you, one, be in integrity, and two, focus on the different areas of your life. But we're not going to talk about that today.
Right.
But I really appreciate you mentioning it because it is a powerful tool and it does keep you grounded and connected in areas. And so this first piece, artistic versus commercial success, this is a little bit of the question we asked last time about, do you have to sell out? And sometimes people feel like artistic success is doing whatever I want without regard to anything, and somebody somewhere seeing it, thinking it's cool, and giving me $1 gazillion. That's artistic success. And commercial success means abandoning my desires and true passion and going somewhere that somebody needs something and doing whatever that is to get paid, and therefore I leave my artistic truth somewhere else. And that's not what it is. And so the answer to the question, is it a trade? The answer is no, and heck no. And you can fill in stronger words if you choose to. No, it's not a trade. Let me give you an example. Me. And Yvette, I want you to think of an example too. So I coach breakthrough work. I coach huge transformational work, and I also coach business. And it comes from my long history of success doing all of those things. But one of the things that I do is music. It's a deep, powerful passion for me. And I do it true to my artistic stuff. I promote it just a very little bit. And yet every day I download a report that tells me how many downloads and plays I got from some distributor I have in Austria that puts it all over iTunes and DorkTunes and wherever else it goes, right? And so there is some degree of commercial success there. I'm not even trying. And it comes from two things. It comes from being true to my artistic vision. It comes from intelligently deciding where that artistic vision should go so somebody who cares might find it. Oh, gee, do I have to do that? Yeah, you have to do that. And then it comes from consistency. You keep it up, you keep it up, you keep it up, you keep it up. So the first question, is it a trade? No, it is not a trade. Now, I want you to give an example or two that that has occurred to you while I've been blabbing.
Well, I think one was when we started working together. What led me to that was I used to do, I think we had talked about, there are lots of things that I know how to do and can do for people. It was a matter of what I wanted to do. And there was a period where I kept getting sucked back into basically grant writing and things related to that area of developing nonprofit programs, but it just wasn't creative enough, even though it was fulfilling in some other areas. And so there was just this divide where art was part of my process of developing strategies and developing plans and programs, but it wasn't something that I shared. And then thinking about how I could make that part of what I did. And so when we talked about focus in the beginning, it was like, what is the thing that I do that nobody else could do, or that they couldn't just get from somewhere else? And it was the marrying of strategy and the art in a way that wasn't based on what somebody else had done or what somebody else had said. It was more how I saw it and what I wanted to do with it. And it has been like so much more fulfilling. It's led to so many other opportunities. I've met so many cool people. It's opened my mind about what's possible in terms of what I could do creatively. There were things that installations and things that I wanted to do that I couldn't figure out, well, how would I ever be able to do that without having to do a lot of like schmoozing or something with galleries and like getting back into that scene. So I think that when you focus in on who it is that you want to help, why you want to do what you want to do, that was what opened the door to really thinking differently and seeing new possibilities creatively and commercially.
So I'm going to say one other little piece about this, and then we'll move on to part two. And that is, one of the things that I see often that gets in people's way is that they're actually not willing to put their true creative force and creation in the public, because they operate from a place of fear. So I do something and I don't really quite actually all the way do what I want to do. I do it sort of, and then I tweak it a little or a lot because I think I have to in order to get found and get commercial. And so you're lying to yourself. Wake up. You've already compromised yourself because you've operated from a place of fear. And I'm not talking to Yvette, I'm talking to whoever might watch this later. You're a liar because you're saying I have to sell out, and you don't even know because you didn't have the courage to be who you are and do what you do. And put it out in the public for either critique or praise or being ignored. Now, there's all kinds of strategies about where to put it. What Yvette said, who do you exactly serve? What is it that you do for them? And what would be their experience and their benefit and power, when they're exposed to and get to play with or be, changed by your art? How do you move me is what I had, the way I described that. And you haven't done any of that, but that comes after you're true to yourself and you create what it is you think you really want to do. And so many people that I work with, they don't dare do that. And they decided already that they have to sell out, which is them selling themselves out before they gave the world a chance to make any judgment.
I totally, when you were saying that, the way that I even came to art-based solutions was I realized that what I had been doing for years was something called art-based research that I had never heard of until I started to meet academics working in art-based research. I got opportunities to collaborate with them and started to see how I could develop my work and apply my creative blood trails, the piece that I had that was published in, I can't think of the name of the book now, but anyway, it was a textbook for art-based research. And Pauline and I did some work together for that. And that included like some photography, some poetry, some prose back and forth between the two of us. And it opened my world when I started to collaborate with Pauline. I felt that when I got introduced to her work, it was transformative because I discovered there was something called art-based methodologies. And it was this way of marrying what I had wanted to do with art and what I had been doing with nonprofit work and what I was doing as a business consultant together. So once you let go of all the things that let go of the fears, that's one part of it, and open up your mind to the possibilities that you don't know what you don't know.
That's one of the favorite phrases of every coach that coach does any good job is that to the client, you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
so you can't pretend that you know what you don't know, and you're going to figure it out because you don't know what you don't know. It's like a gymnast trying to critique their own form. You can't see yourself from over here to see what you're doing or not doing. You don't know what you don't know. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. So the answer to the first one is artistic and commercial success a trade-off? No, it isn't. Now, there are going to be, I was going to say maybe, but there are going to be things that you do with your art that you enjoy more than other things. So there are pieces of my business that I really love that are the core and heart, and there are pieces that are peripheral and around that I have to do that are not as much fun.
Right.
But because I get to do the total fun things, all that peripheral stuff around is like, whatever. It's just stuff I got to do to get to the good stuff. It's okay. It's not like, oh, no, it's nonsense. All right, good. So let's move to part two. The question or point number 2 today is narrower is better. What does that mean? So, Yvette, I'm going to ask you that question. If I say to you, narrower is better, what does that mean?
Well, in my experience, it is the transition from thinking that the world is your audience and I'm doing this for everybody, as opposed to really understanding who your market is and who would resonate with what you're doing, or who it is that you want to speak to, or who is in the contextual such situation where what you're doing would be relevant to them. I'd mentioned the thing about art-based research when I first started doing that. Obviously, the people that was relevant to were academics who were already working in interdisciplinary research and that sort of thing. So I think that with musicians, if you're thinking like, I hate to like classify music, but one of the things I was impressed by when I looked at your catalog was that you didn't just do a particular kind of music, that it seemed that you had found a way to follow your own creative freedom, but still be able to find the market for that particular product. So rather than saying, my music is for everybody, you do a particular project and it seems that there's a focus for that project, whether it's techno or it's, meditation and kind of a new age market. So I think of that being focus is something that's ongoing, it's dynamic, it's not a focus, it's not a static thing, that this is my audience and this will be who I always talk to and the only people that I talk to, but narrowing for each project that you do, coming back and asking that question over and over again.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna expand on that, and I'm gonna talk to you in the audience. You in the audience, whoever's watching this right now, when you live your life, you find yourself in the course of the same day talking with great passion and energy to a person perhaps about a belief system. Maybe there's something spiritual that you talk about in a given day. And in the same day, with equal passion, you might talk about how to care for a pet. If you're a cat lover like my wife is, and she's fanatic about that. And she can go from a very intense and powerful conversation about pets to a conversation about an art gallery. She loves art. She's an architectural wizard, and she studied all that ancient architecture and loves to go to Rome and look at the Pantheon, all that jazz. Okay, so she can go from passionate discussion about one to the other in the same day. Now, can you imagine a conversation that you would try to craft, or a product that would appeal to someone who is an art lover of ancient architecture, like, Hadrian, I now know this from her, believe me, I didn't know it myself, who built the Pantheon, right? And a guy who's a fanatic, or a gal who's a fanatic about cats in the same conversation, or the same piece of art, or it just doesn't work. And that's what happens when you think the world is your audience. Nonsense. Create a piece of your art for one person that will look at it, melt down over it because it resonates so strongly with that emotion, feeling, situation, setting, occurrence, historical event, whatever it is that you do, and do it with that intensity in mind. And when I say narrower is better, that's what I mean. Because when you've narrowed it to where you are talking to one person, then that person's going to resonate, explode, have a cow, evolve into ecstasy, whatever they do, because you have addressed their particular need. And oh, by the way, everybody that sees that interaction and sees that too, that fancies themselves in that universe, is going to be powerfully moved and motivated, like watching a movie and identifying with the character. And so what you do is you've created a powerful light aimed at one person, and everybody else that likes that light's going to come run around for the party. And if you try to create a light of many colors to appeal to everybody, nobody's going to give a crap. And so I say it that strongly because that's just kind of how it is. And so if you really want to focus in and get a light that's bright, then dare to do that and aim it at that one person that's just going to melt down over that light. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes sense to me.
All right, so I want you to think a little bit about what that might mean for you, or for someone in the audience that might be watching that you might be thinking about. Give some specific thoughts or feedback about somebody maybe that you know that needs to hear or think about that. Maybe they're watching.
Well, I did have a conversation with somebody that I am a fan of, and when I first saw them perform, they were doing jazz and doing these like American standards. And I was floored. I was absolutely floored because I heard this voice, that this was somebody I had known for a while, and did not know that there was this level, this sort of dynamic in her voice. And her singing voice was nothing like what I thought it would be like. And it was just so perfect. She owned the stage. It was so perfect. And so I've been telling her, it's like, you need to go back to that because you floored us. I brought some other people to see her perform, you know, at another time, a couple of other venues. And it's like everybody was so impressed. Like, you need to go back to that because that was what floored everybody. You need to figure out how to bring it back around to jazz and that kind of sensibility because it's so well suited for your voice. And so I think that that's an example of somebody being very specific and speaking to a certain audience that really loves what she does with that particular kind of music. So I think that would be an example of the focus being meaningful and helping you make that powerful connection, as opposed to trying to do what's popular and, you know, that kind of thing, doing Taylor Swifty kind of whatever.
Okay. So let me just ask a question. What would you say then, if I'm a musician and I come to you for advice, and my question to you is, wow, what do you think I should do to make some money? Because that's a question artists all say, right? They all come in and the first thing out of their mouth is, whoa, what do I need to do to get paid after they pull the orange out? What do I need to do to get paid? What would you say to me if I was your client? I'm coming to you and I want you to tell me what to do to make money. What are you going to say?
Well, it would depend on exactly what their thing was. But one of the things that I had talked to this particular musician about was because she was trying to write music. And I was like, instead of working on music for another album, I think you need to do a one-woman show that includes your music and that features, you know, you performing as you're sharing the story, maybe sharing the story through that kind of performance. So I think like creating your vehicle, figuring out like who it is that you talk to, and what can you create that will give you an opportunity to like bring that to people, to take that to people.
So that's fantastic. And I want to riff a little bit on a point that you just raised that I think is critical and that I finally learned and teach to clients also, is this piece about story. People say to me regularly, clients and prospects that are thinking about whether or not they have the guts to, you know, enter into an intense coaching program and get stuff done. But I don't really have any story worth telling. I don't really have anything that compelling and interesting. And one of the things I say that shocks people, and that I've never failed on this particular thing, is give me 10 minutes with you. In 10 minutes, I can tell you what your story is, how you're unique, and what powerful vehicle you could use, just like you told that lady, right, to connect with people, to create yourself an audience, and to find a group that would resonate with you and want what you have. Give me 10 minutes. And so I've been taken up a few times on the challenge, and by the end of 10 minutes, every time it's like, holy crap, I never thought about that. Yeah, I guess I could do that. And then the question anymore isn't, is your art worthwhile? Will somebody pay you? The question then is, do you have the courage and the determination to create it and then follow the business processes that we're going to talk about in later hangouts here, the business processes to get it in front of the right people so you give them the opportunity to buy who you really are and what you have.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is overcoming, I know for myself, has been the fear of rejection and how often that gets in the way. And certainly you see that with a lot of artists, and because nobody enjoys being critiqued. Many of us have not had great experiences with that. But getting over that fear, and I know that one of the things that you have said has been that if you're not upsetting or pissing off somebody, then, you need to look at, the value of what you're saying. So I think that there's, that's another part of that focus, and not trying to be all things to all people out of fear of offending somebody and not wanting to be authentic and present yourself the way, because one of the part of the positive feedback that I did get that helps me address exactly that was I had a couple people say that they could really tell that I cared about helping people, that my desire to be helpful that came through. And I thought, well, that's really cool. So I think that really speaks to what you're saying.
It does, and I want to say it in just plain old English. If you're not pissing somebody off, then you should be, and you're not saying anything. And number two, go find a way to get rejected, please. Go find a way to get rejected violently and angrily, because then you've actually focused narrowly your stuff enough to say something worthwhile. If you're afraid of getting rejected, get over it. Let me give you an example. I have to give a talk on Monday, the day after tomorrow, in front of a bunch of executives in a complex and difficult field. In my 30-year consulting history in the past of designing electricity markets of all things, right? I am one of the keynote speakers for a conference on Monday in front of a whole bunch of people in that venue, right? I spent 2.5 hours last night on the phone with a speaker coach who I videotaped my talk, and he played it all the way through and critiqued every move, every thought, every uncomfortableness, every space, every repetition, every piece of it, and just took it to pieces for me for 2.5 hours. So I do that like last night for 2.5 hours so that I can rewrite this talk today and get it organized so I can kick some ass on Monday. And so the stuff I'm talking about is not for somebody else.
Right.
I do it. I did it last night for a talk on Monday. All right, number 3.
Well, can I just add to that, Kellan, though? Don't you think that that's what makes you so confident when you step out on stage in front of an audience, is that you've done that?
I am so excited about Monday. I could hardly can stand myself, because I'm going to, I'm half the room. And my coach said this. He said it was a great talk. So he was very nice also. Right. And he did all the stuff that he needed to do. But it was great. He said half the audience is going to be on their feet, and the other half is going to sit there with their arms folded and hate your guts. And that's what I wanted.
Okay. All right.
All right.
You can handle it.
I intend to, and I intend to go after it that way. So the third part, we got to hustle, we've just got 3 minutes left, is to create clarity by doing. So one of the things I hear a lot is, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I'm waiting to get clear on my purpose. And nobody says it like that. They say it very earnestly, like they're going to go find clarity in a box somewhere in their basement or on a wooded path that they're walking. We're going to go find a moment of clarity. Right? And that's going to just sort of shine down through the branches. And the answer is, go smoke something else. Clarity is not found. It is created. It is created by doing.
Right. It's an experience.
React to that. You talk about that.
It's an experience. You know that you found clarity when you experience it. When you're doing the thing, you're like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And when you have that feeling, you know it. You can't think your way to clarity. It doesn't happen that way, because it's still just an idea. You don't know until you're doing it. You know, it's like I used to think that I wanted to be a grant writer, you know, many years ago. And then when I started doing, it's like I hated it. So I think it's like you get clarity from doing because it's an experiential kind of revelation. It's not a thought revelation necessarily. You don't really know until you're doing it.
So that's a quotable. Yvette, I want you to put that up on your Facebook with a meme of you.
Okay.
You cannot think your way to clarity. That's a perfect little Yvette artistic meme that you need to put on a picture of you on a meme on your Facebook wall. Everybody write that down. You can't think your way to clarity. It is something that happens to you when you're doing something. And that means you're going to have to do a lot of wrong crap that isn't clarity until you get to the clarity. Like Edison and his 10,000 wrong light bulbs. I just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Okay, cool. And then when he made it, then it was, because he got clarity that this is the way to make the light bulb. Okay, you're going to find it by wading through many minefields of this is not clarity. This is not what I want to do. All right. So if you can't tell, any of you watching this, for me, coaching, helping people do literally impossible things. I've spent decades helping people do stuff they don't believe they can do, causing completion and execution of stuff they don't think is in their world. This is my clarity. I mean, this is what I do when people get those victories. Like, oh yeah, I get excited as they do. So that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about for you, and it can be right square in the middle of the artistic endeavors you love to do. So any final comments, Yvette?
Just that, you know, for anybody watching this to know that we are doing this. This is one of the things that I didn't think that I could do, and we're doing it.
So that's perfect. Thank you. So a couple notes for the audience. We're going to skip next Saturday. Okay, we're going to skip next Saturday and resume on, I think it's October the 10th, with part 3. So don't be looking for us next Saturday. There will be a week off because I have a conflict and I can't help. I can't next Saturday. Right. So we'll be skipping a week and we'll pick up with part 3 on October the 10th. If you want to get a hold of Yvette, please look her up, friend her on Facebook, start a conversation with her. If you want to get a hold of me, there's several ways to do it. Coach Kellan Fluckiger at gmail.com, breakthecagenow.com. There's all kinds of ways. Friend me up on Facebook, Kellan Fluckiger. There's only 2 of us, and my son is a lot different looking than I am. He's got a lot of tattoos, and he can bench press 500 and change, and did some MMA fighting. So you won't confuse the 2 of them, right? And so anyway, please, let's have a dialogue and conversation. I'd love to chat with you more about this. And until next week, I'll say goodbye, Yvette.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks from today with part 3 on this continuing episode of Break the Cage Now.